It's time for Q-School, the one detour before we get back on the road to French Lick. Hi, I'm Ryan Ballengee. Welcome once again to the Road to French Lick, a show chronicling the Korn Ferry Tour. And we're in between seasons at the moment. The 2024 Korn Ferry Tour season ended with the Korn Ferry Tour Championship presented by United Leasing and Finance at the French Lick Resort in French Lick, Indiana on the Pete Dye course. And we'll resume again in January with the start of the Korn Ferry Tour season for 2025 and the Bahamas. In between, though, is the final stage of PGA Tour Q-School presented by Korn Ferry. And it's a unique tournament in the annals of golf history, and it's also a very important one at the end of the year to set up the next season. For the second consecutive season, the PGA Tour has reintroduced PGA Tour cards through Q-School. A 72-hole tournament is conducted at two courses, the Sawgrass Country Club, one of the original homes of the Players' Championship, as well as the Diaz Valley course at TPC Sawgrass, the other course opposite the home of the Players' Championship for the last 45 years. Those two courses host this 72-hole event. This year there was a 171-player starting field. There is no cut, and every player in the field gets 2 rounds on each of those courses. The top 5 players in ties at the end of the 72-hole tournament were to earn PGA Tour status for 2025, with the next 40 players and ties after those top 5 in ties earning guaranteed starts on the Korn Ferry Tour in 2025. Those first 25 in ties earning 12 guaranteed starts, getting them through the first several reshuffles on the Korn Ferry Tour schedule, and the remaining players in that cluster getting 8 guaranteed starts, getting through the first 2 reshuffles on the schedule, giving them an opportunity to establish themselves, earn critical Korn Ferry Tour points, and set themselves up for the remainder of the season, giving them a chance to claim what next year will be one of 20 PGA Tour cards going out at the end of the 2025 Korn Ferry Tour Championship, presented by United Leasing and Finance. Our Brendan Sweeney was on the ground over the course of the week at TPC Sawgrass and Sawgrass Country Club, and ahead of the tournament, he spoke to several players about what they hoped would happen over the course of the week.
The road to French Lick starts here at TPC Diaz Valley. Q-School, 172 guys trying to go for 5 spots in ties. It'll eventually wind up on the PGA Tour. Not ideal conditions, but they're willing to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Tyler, what are you taking into this week? First of all, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Yeah, hanging in there, just grinding away. Didn't have my best year, but at the end of the season during the playoffs, we took some time, went out to TPI, and really found some stuff. And so the last couple months have really just been working on those things and started to see that pay off this fall a little bit. Not fully the results I wanted, but showing signs of really good golf. And so, just come out here and play well this week, finish top 5, and get my card and get back out on tour.
Perfect. With the Korn Ferry Championships coming to French Lick, you had experience there back in 2012, Big Ten Championships.
Yep.
What do you think of the course? What do you think? How did these guys handle it last year? Pretty well.
Yeah.
The numbers showed up.
It's great. I always love going down there. My wife and I got married in Jasper, just down the road, and then we had our reception at French Lick and took pictures up there. And Shank and I go up and play all the time whenever I'm down visiting, and he's in Vincennes. So just great vibes. Love being there. It's pretty awesome when you're up there. You don't feel like you're in Indiana. It's crazy. Like, you tell people to go play. It's a great experience, and the course is really good.
Well, with you and Adam and Joe Weiler being the Boilermakers on tour, a pretty dominant Purdue force, what does that speak to the program, and how do you communicate back to the guys in West Lafayette?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Bradley did an awesome job at Purdue. Just left to go to South Carolina, but we all really like Coach Sapp, and he's going to do a tremendous job there with the program as well. But moving back to Indiana, I travel up and visit with the team a lot when I can, and go up there and practice here and there. The facilities up there are as good as you're going to find anywhere. So I always love going up there to practice and see the guys.
The 2 courses up at West Lafayette, up at Purdue, both Pete Dye gems.
Yeah.
And that has to show something of the magnitude of the team and what the conditions they play in, and it prepares them for the next level. How did that help you guys growing up?
It's great. The courses are so challenging, and the weather in West Lafayette's not always the best. So it prepares you so well for any condition you're ever going to face playing tournament golf. And then also the golf courses are as hard as you're going to get anywhere. I remember it was before I got there, but when they hosted the national championship, I went up and watched, and a lot of those guys that played the national championship said it played harder than the U.S. Open a couple weeks later.
It's amazing. Well, you're gonna have some great conditions, tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Starting tomorrow, it's supposed to drop down in the 40s.
Yeah.
How are you gonna prepare for that?
Yeah. It's just like being back home. I played in 40, 50 degree weather all the time growing up. Anytime it was over 40, it was time to get out and play. So I've had a lot of experience, and I was actually down here practicing last week, and it was similar conditions. So just keep the ball in front of you and make some putts.
With both of these courses being at a par 70, there's only 4 par 5s out there, so you really got to be tight on your approaches. A lot of water, a lot of things out there, so a lot of challenges to be happening, especially in a field of 173 guys.
Exactly, yeah. Especially on the Valley course, you got to really drive it well. You'll have your opportunities with wedges. You get a good chance to some scoring opportunities. Take advantage of the par 5s, hit some wedges close, and then roll in a few putts.
Bobby, how you doing, man?
Great, man. Thanks for having me.
How wrap up last year on where you were coming up to the Korn Ferry Championship at French Lick? What were your thoughts and impressions about, number one, the resort and how you played?
Yeah, last year was a all year for me. I played really, really well, and I started getting good results until the end of the year. Luckily I made it to the Tour Championship, and yeah, the Tour Championship was great. I think the golf course was a very good test. It was long, it was demanding. It was a very good setup. I think it was awesome. So, and obviously the facilities and everything around French Lick were great. The hotel, the casino, the restaurants. All the things that you guys did around town were awesome for that week.
Excellent. Now, coming in from October, now we're in December. What have you been working on since then, and how are you trying to get through this week?
Yeah, just trying to decompress after the year and just trying to get ready for this. A couple of changes, technique, and just trying to stay sharp.
Got it. Your sponsors, you're going to give a shout out to those guys.
Yeah.
Wait, put it this way. Who's the first person you're going to call after you get your card at the end of the week?
Probably my family first, and then John Rollman and Barry Cox from the Cox Group. They're great people, and they sponsor the tournament there in French Lick, and they're from Evansville, Indiana. They're awesome guys.
Awesome. Well, we wish you the best of luck and have a great holiday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It proved to be a dramatic Sunday after a dramatic week of difficult scoring conditions, particularly on Friday and Saturday. In the end, 6 players were able to earn PGA Tour cards for next year, with the medalist being 36-year-old Lanto Griffin, who is a former PGA Tour winner, just became a father months ago. He shot a final round 63 on the Diaz Valley course, including an outward 29 on Sunday, to set himself in position to get one of the 5 and ties PGA Tour cards for next year. Turns out to be the medalist. He winds up winning by 3 shots over another player who had PGA Tour status this year, Hayden Buckley, who finished on 6 under par. He shot 67 in the final 2 rounds of the event to finish in solo second. In third place was Takumi Kanaya, the former world number 1 amateur, who earned status on the PGA Tour for the first time after 7 Japan Pro Golf Tour wins. He closed with 3 rounds under par and 1 round of even par to get in on third place for the week. And then there were 3 players tied at 4 under total who wound up getting status on the PGA Tour, including Alejandro Tosti, who had PGA Tour status through the Korn Ferry Tour from last season, Will Chandler, and Matthew Riddell. So those are the 6 players who wound up moving on. Unfortunately, Alistair Doherty winds up again a shot shy of getting to the PGA Tour through a big tournament like this. At the season-ending Korn Ferry Tour Championship, presented by United Leasing and Finance, there was a time on Sunday afternoon when Doherty was inside the projected top 30. However, on the final hole, Brian Campbell and Doc Redman played the closing par 5 on the Pete Dye course so well, making birdies, and that knocked out Alistair Doherty, basically by a shot, from having a card to not having a card. And unfortunately, once again for Doherty, he's 1 shot out of the bubble. So he will have full status on the Korn Ferry Tour next year. He is fully exempt as a player who finished between 31st and 75th place in the Korn Ferry Tour points list. And the players who finished in the top 25 in ties from the group outside these top 6 players, they get a guaranteed 12 starts on the Korn Ferry Tour next year if they don't already have better status. And there's a lot of minutia to that. There are a lot of different ways you can have status on the Korn Ferry Tour, whether that's full status, being a player who finished 31st through 75th last season on the Korn Ferry Tour, whether that gives you opportunities to play based on winning your second stage at Q-School, which gets you 8 guaranteed starts. Being a conditional member on the PGA Tour gets you full access to the Korn Ferry Tour. So if you finished 126th through 150th in the PGA Tour's FedEx Cup Fall last season, then you also have full access to the Korn Ferry Tour. There are Monday qualifiers. There are lots of ways in. So for players who did not get either 12 or 8 guaranteed starts out of this, they may already have status on the Korn Ferry Tour next year in some capacity. And there's also opportunities for conditional membership to Monday qualify and get in other events as well. So the door isn't completely shut on players who didn't walk away as winners this week. But in the end, there are a lot of players who were happy to be able to gain access to the Korn Ferry Tour, even if that meant coming up short of a PGA Tour card, because of what it could mean for their careers moving forward. Several players who gained either 12 or 8 starts had no status on any major tour, whether that's PGA Tour Americas, PGA Tour's Korn Ferry Tour, or the PGA Tour itself in their playing career. So this big week for them resulted in a big opportunity for them that starts in 2025. When it comes to the Korn Ferry Tour, there are a few people better to talk to than Kevin Prise, one of the associate editors for PGA Tour Digital. We spoke with him at the Media Center for PGA Tour Q-School presented by Korn Ferry, not only about Q-School itself and the PGA Tour cards on the line, but the coming changes to the Korn Ferry Tour for the 2025 season.
So this week we had the championship at French Lick. Guys moved on to the PGA Tour. But guys didn't also move on to the PGA Tour, and a lot of them are back here this week, as well as a lot of seasoned veterans that are making their way. What does this week mean to not only you, but to the tour and the future of golf?
It's kind of the last chance of the year to get your PGA Tour card. You have the 30 cards for the Korn Ferry Tour, you have 10 through the DP World Tour, you have PGA Tour University from college, and now this is kind of that last frontier for guys to get onto the PGA Tour next year, with the top 5 in ties getting your 2025 PGA Tour membership. And then there's other levels of status where the next 40 in ties will get guaranteed starts on the Korn Ferry Tour. And it's kind of a fascinating week because some guys are already locked into the Korn Ferry Tour, fully exempt. Everyone who made it to French Lick for the Korn Ferry Tour Championship doesn't need to worry about Korn Ferry Tour status, so they can really go for broke for the top 5 to get a tour card and move up a level, whereas some other guys are trying to get those Korn Ferry Tour starts for the first time. So there's all sorts of different rookies and veterans. You have guys who have won on tour like Sean O'Hare, Nick Watney, Scott Piercy, and then you have guys who have never played in a PGA Tour event. So it's just such a wide swath of people.
So a field of 172 on 2 golf courses with some weather that's coming in. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a long day out there.
Oh, for sure. And there's no cut, so the rounds might get, up to 5.5, 6 hour rounds. You have 2 tough courses, a lot of water on Diaz Valley course, which has hosted Korn Ferry Tour Championship before. Always one of the toughest tests on the Korn Ferry Tour when it played. And then Sawgrass Country Club actually hosted the Players Championship 5 times from 1977 to 1981. And right by the water, windswept venue, a lot of trouble there. So couple that with the nerves and the tension of trying to get your card, and once it gets to the weekend and those guys who are on those bubbles, either the top 5 or the top 45, there's just a lot to think about, a lot of backing off shots, a lot of guessing. It's definitely one of those weeks that's really a cauldron in terms of you really need to navigate your emotions and really hone into your right strategy, because it can go sideways quickly, and you'll see a lot of big numbers and a lot of big scores on the weekend. But you'll also see guys who hang in there to get those cards.
So last year at the championship, before the championship even started, there were 16 guys that already had status. With the reduction of the field going from 75 to 60, and then the number of cards that will be distributed down to 20 at the Korn Ferry Championships. What if? What if 20 guys secure their cards prior? I mean, it would be just, okay, what are we doing? So have you guys thought about that at all? Or
I think the way the points break down, it would be hard for everyone to clinch a card before, just with 600 points in the season finale, and the talent level is so close that whatever the bubble is, it tends to get bunched up, whether it's 30 or 25 back in the day. And with 20, there's a chance the bubble might be spread out, like you said, 16, and then there were 14 more available. There might be 16 clinched again, but there'd still be 4 available. So there will still be plenty of drama down the stretch of guys trying to get their tour cards. And like you said, with the 60, it'll be a more limited kind of operation out there. But this is my first time really thinking about that too, as you answered that question. But there will still be a bubble. There will still be tension, because anyone in the field with a win will still be able to move inside and get their card. Or historically, that's how it's been, and I would imagine that'll be the case again. Maybe not, but there will still be plenty of drama down the stretch at French Lick for sure.
Brendan Sweeney joins me. He was at Q-School, the final stage at TPC Sawgrass, the Diaz Valley course, hosted half of the 4 rounds for half the field each day. And then Sawgrass Country Club just across the street, former home of the original Players Championship before they had built the stadium course at TPC Sawgrass. They split the 4 rounds, had 171 players start, Brendan. We wind up with much fewer than that getting cards, playing for 5 in ties. We did get some ties, so we get 6 guys going to the PGA Tour with cards next year. And interestingly enough, half of them were already on the tour in some capacity. So what's your takeaway from Lanto Griffin being the medalist and then having Alejandro Tosti and Hayden Buckley in there getting right back to the PGA Tour?
Well, first of all, happy holidays to you, man. And
likewise.
Special shout out to our dear friend, Jeff Babineau, who passed away way too young. I've known him forever and ever, and I don't remember ever meeting him for the first time, but I remember the last time I was with him. So God bless him and his family, and especially during these times. So, yeah. With that being said, Q-School, my gosh, first stage, second stage, to have 171 guys play for 6 spots was pretty exciting. And not only at Sawgrass at Diaz Valley, but at Sawgrass Country Club across the street, which was playing. Sawgrass Country Club was playing absolutely insane. The rounds out there, I think on Saturday, the scoring average was like 5 over par. And you saw a lot of just absolute carnage out there. But at the end of the day, everybody came up. All the horses came back on the track, and they moved it out. Lanto Griffin played spectacularly. He did a fantastic job out there, and just sort of pulled away from the field towards the end of the day yesterday. The weather was definitely a factor. Earlier in the week, I was out there. Wind was blowing. It was raining. I sent you a couple clips out there. Cleared up a little bit on Thursday. Friday was windy, and then Saturday was stable, and then Sunday was absolutely perfect. So it was a little bit windy out there. Great crowds, great people out there, and the cream definitely rose to the crop. And just having the 6 guys that were out there, Griffin, Buckley,
Kanaya,
Kanaya, who's 7-time winner in Japan, Will Chandler. Tosti had a great round. I mean, he was up and down. He was a couple strokes out and fought back hard. And he's just such a charismatic guy too, and he's going to do well out there. So, great people for us. I mean, I looked at the field list going into the tournament, and what these guys are trying to do is improve their status out there. So, out of the 171 guys, there were 31 guys that played at the Korn Ferry Championship presented by United Leasing and Finance at French Lick, and 31 of those guys were in the field, and they're all trying to improve their status, trying to get the cards and whatnot. So it was always good to see some familiar faces. It was great meeting new ones, and I think the wrap up of the 2024 season has been really positive, not only for us at Golf Newsnet and Rosa French Lick, but for everybody else involved with it. So looking forward to a great holiday season. And looking forward to 2025.
Really interesting point about all 6 players who wound up getting their cards in the end. All of them finished on Diaz Valley on Sunday. So they played their second and fourth rounds at Diaz Valley, first and third at Sawgrass Country Club. Not a single player who finished on Sawgrass Country Club wound up getting their card in the end.
Yeah, well, especially on that Friday. They did Thursday, Saturday, and Friday was the day of carnage, especially – well, they had four holes on the water on the ocean at Sawgrass Country Club, and the wind was, just 28 miles an hour solid. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think Pearson Coody was the only one that played, Sunday at Sawgrass, and I think he finished like 27th out there. So, the field is what it is, and these guys are so good. When you're at the range, I was at the range for 3 days out there just watching these guys. I couldn't tell the difference who is who. I mean, they're all so good. It just comes down to just the little things. I was following Tyler Duncan yesterday. 17 bogeys, 18 hits his second shot to about 24 feet. I was standing next to his father-in-law, and he goes, he's going to make this putt. And sure enough, he just snakes a 24-footer and just sort of walks away. So it was good. It was definitely good to see. The crowds were surprisingly well. There were some folks out there that obviously you're following who you know. Yeah. And there were some good pockets out there. But overall, it was a great experience, not only for me, but for the others involved.
I know we all tend to focus, now that Q-School has PGA Tour cards again, we focus on the 5 and ties, right? That's the life-changing money that you have access to. If you play well during the year, you're going to get into 23, 24 tournaments in the end, probably. You're going to have a chance to play for a lot of cash. But even for players who didn't wind up getting a PGA Tour card, a number of guys who never had status on any major tour, they wound up getting guaranteed starts because they wound up in that 40 in ties right after these 6 guys. You get 12 guaranteed starts if you're in the top 25 in ties after the PGA Tour card winners. And then the remaining top 40 in ties, they get 8 guaranteed starts on the Korn Ferry Tour. So they don't have to worry about either the first 2 or first 3 reshuffles on the schedule. I know it's a lot of minutia we're not going to go into, but it is a big deal for a lot of players who still didn't wind up getting a PGA Tour card. They walk away feeling like they're a winner too.
Well, I look at some of the players that stood out this week for us, and you look at Alistair Dockery. My gosh, I mean, Doc Redmond has a birdie on 18 at French Lick, knocks him out of the top 30, and then he finishes, missed it by 1. Yeah. Friday at Sawgrass Country Club, with the winds blowing hard, he shoots a 66, 4 under. It's incredible. And then, the field was 5 over for the day. So he just went and he just misses it by 1. I mean, you look at that story. You look at Shad Tootin, who in 23 at Victoria National, 18th hole, ball rotates. He misses his card, misses final stage of Q-School last year. This year, he doesn't make the top 40. So he's back in the shuffle. But a new player that came out that really jumped out of the crowd, Corey Shaw, who winds up shoots a 61 at Diaz Valley, course record. And then the next day shoots a 76. So he had a 5-stroke lead. It was the largest margin of a lead in Q-School history since 1992. He blew that thing, and he misses his card. But he's a new guy on the Korn Ferry Tour. No one's ever heard of him. He came out of nowhere, and he played well. So that's an up-and-coming name that these names just sort of rise to the top. And it's like, where did this guy come from? The kid went to UCLA, and he's been a grinder out there. And all of a sudden he pops through first stage, second stage, he's in final stage, and first day he shoots a course record. So there's a lot of great stories out there. And I think Corey's just one of them that we're going to find out in 2025 what he's made of.
Yeah, we get to spin it forward to next year. The Korn Ferry Tour season starts again pretty quickly after the holidays. They're in the Bahamas with back-to-back tournaments. They're moving one venue in the Bahamas series this year to Atlantis, basically, which is Paradise Island, which is a gorgeous place. I mean, not that anywhere in the Bahamas isn't gorgeous, but the cool thing is we get to take a mix of players that we got to know last year, those guys who finished agonizingly close at French Lick, 31-75 in the field. They're fully exempt for the year, so we get the Alistair Dohertys of the world who have a chance to make good for the agonizingly close defeats of not getting a PGA Tour card. We get a bunch of new guys who had no status on this tour last year, either because of what they did in PGA Tour Americas or what they did in this event. They've got guaranteed starts or full status. Even people who managed to win their second stage at Q-School, they've got guaranteed starts. So we've got a baseline of players who we're getting to know because of these, either the last year or this week in particular, and they're going to form the basis of the Korn Ferry Tour season that we're going to chronicle for next year.
Yep. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We'll see you again in the Bahamas. We're not going to the Bahamas, but we're going to see the tour again in the Bahamas. And
I did run into Commissioner Alex Baldwin yesterday. I said that we need to be invited to some pro-ams. So we'll see if that has any value to it. So she was great, by the way. It was amazing. So,
and it's really cool to see the evolution of the tour. And the PGA Tour continues to put resources behind the Korn Ferry Tour. I know that the PGA Tour is changing how it will hand out cards. There'll be 100 moving forward, top 100, and it'll be 20 to the Korn Ferry Tour instead of 30, which makes this tour a whole lot more compelling in some ways, because that means there are fewer cards to fight for and the same amount of tournaments to play.
Well, you look at the tour cards that are going to be handed out in October in French Lick. The field goes from 75 to 60. So not only is the amount of cards being shortened, the field's being shortened as well too. So that's something else to look at.
Yeah.
And then you look at PGAU, the PGA Tour University Series, that definitely has some. DP World Tour has 10 cards going to the show as well too. So
yeah, it's getting a whole lot harder to have a card, and for us as golf fans and people who get to chronicle this journey, particularly on the Korn Ferry Tour, makes it a little bit more interesting and maybe even a little bit more agonizing for a number of players. So 2025 is going to be a fascinating kind of transition year for this tour in some ways, and we're going to chronicle it all with more shows, more content this year in 2025. So very excited to do it with you, Brendan, and get on the road and go experience the Korn Ferry Tour some more. Yeah, well, speaking of experiences in Indiana, this Friday it all comes down to this, baby. All comes down to IU, Notre Dame. It's the battle of the beast in the East and everything. It's like, you want to hear some sort of crazy stat about Indiana and Notre Dame? All right, sure. They met 25. It's 23-5-1 is the record. Notre Dame has just had it. But out of that 23-5-1, Indiana went 4-3-1 from 1898 to 1907. So Notre Dame is pretty much won the last 21 times that they've met. So it should be interesting. Coach Signetti is doing a great job down in Bloomington. And my wife is from Bloomington. I have heavy IU ties. And being an Irish Catholic kid from Chicago, I have heavy Notre Dame ties. So I have to go with the hometown dogs of the Hoosiers, or I'm going to have a very, very cold Christmas. But it's not a bad week to be in Indiana. You got two incredible football teams, part of the 12-team playoff. And if you'd have told me there were two teams from Indiana in the playoff at the start of the year, I'd have called you crazy. There you go. Well, my wife went to DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana, and they went 12-1 this year. So they played for the National 3A Championship. So they actually played Johns Hopkins. So they lost to the Blue Jays. Yikes. So who knows? I didn't even know Johns Hopkins had a football program, and I live in this area. So it's crazy. How about that? Never know. Learn something new every day. The stuff you learn on this show, it's not just golf. Exactly. It's all about the experience. Hey, appreciate your friendship. To everybody out there, have a very blessed and Merry Christmas. Be well, be good to your family, be great to your neighbors, and just be a kind human. That's all we could ask. That's for sure. We'll leave on that. Thanks, Brendan. Well, that'll do it for us. We're on this special episode of The Road to French Lick. Thank you so much for watching this season. That's going to do it for us in 2024. We are back with Season 2 of The Road to French Lick starting in January. We'll cover the first events on the Korn Ferry Tour schedule in the Bahamas. We'll also have weekly updates for you as we lead into each and every tournament. That'll be available on Golf Newsnet TV as well as anywhere we produce video, social media, MSN, and other places. So you'll stay up to date on the Korn Ferry Tour each and every week with us on the Road to French Lick. We have some new exciting features as part of the show next year. We'll have more episodes for you as well, so we're very excited to get started on Season 2. For Brendan Sweeney, everyone at the French Lick Resort, I'm Ryan Ballengee, and for everyone at Golf Newsnet, thank you so much again for watching the show. Happy holidays, and we'll see you in 2025.